Hello and welcome to our GDPR webinar where we'll be looking at what GDPR is and the impact it will have on your business and its effect on Rapport3. To help me achieve this, I have Mort, Cubic's GDPR project manager, and external data protection consultant, Matt Anslow from Citric Data Protection. So Ian, our first question really is, what is GDPR?
Well, the GDPR is a reform of the current data protection rules and will be applicable across the whole of the European Union. It's currently being written into UK law and will replace the 1998 Data Protection Act. The GDPR builds on the DPA and is intended to provide even more protection for the data of the European Union residents, and with it the powers of enforcement wielded by the ICO have been substantially increased.
Right, okay. So do you think it's going to affect most companies?
Yes, the GDPR applies to processing carried out by organisations operating within the European Union. It also applies to organisations outside the European Union that offer services and goods to individuals within the EU. The current Data Protection Act requires every data controller to register with the Information Commissioner's Office. You are data controllers, so you need to register if you haven't done already. It's the law.
So who is actually internally responsible for GDPR?
In theory, everyone within an organisation is responsible for GDPR, and the directors are duty bound to spread awareness and ensure all employees are following the rules. The extent that an employee will be involved with data privacy rules will depend on what types and how much personal data they have access to. But even employees who have no involvement with personal data for their role should be mindful of a breach if they come across data they are not usually privy to. Someone within an organisation should take the lead on ensuring compliance with GDPR and carry out or arrange for internal audits of data privacy processes and policies. This could be utilising internal or external resources as required. This person will either be on or report to the highest management level within the organisation and will be the first point of contact for supervisory authorities and data subjects.
So do you have to inform anyone of this?
If the company meets certain criteria, they may need to appoint a data protection officer and register them with the ICO. Otherwise, registering an official DPO is voluntary and may not be necessary.
Actually, Matt, is it imperative that the person who's promoted to that permission actually has to have a background in GDPR, or is it something they can learn on the job as they're going through?
So, if the appointment of the data protection officer is mandatory, then yes, they have to be highly skilled in many areas, including EU law.
Right.
I would suggest that if you're appointing a responsible person for data protection within your organisation, don't give them the title data protection officer, because if you do, they are bound by the rules determined by GDPR. So give them an alternative title, but by all means give somebody the responsibility. So it's a good move.
Right. Okay. So how does GDPR affect clients of Cubic Interactive?
Well, as data controllers, the users of Rapport3 will already have responsibilities for determining the purpose and means of processing data, and this will continue under the GDPR, which extends these responsibilities further, especially when the legal basis for processing is consent. To provide a convenient place for tracking GDPR-related information, Cubic are adding features to Rapport3 to support capturing data privacy-specific fields in the context module and reporting on the status of these new fields. In some circumstances, the GDPR makes it easier and cheaper for individuals to exercise their rights to access their data and request they may be forgotten. Cubic are also developing helper tools within Rapport3 to provide quick reporting of personal data and bulk anonymisation of personal data fields on records while retaining important business data associated with an individual.
So I know I'm going to get you to sort of look into your crystal ball now, Ian, but do you anticipate when these releases are going to be ready for our customers to use?
The designs for the new contact module tab have already been produced and development is underway. We anticipate it will be released to the whole client base in good time for the GDPR coming into effect.
Okay, great. So another question we've got here is, what is a DPIA?
A DPIA is a Data Protection Impact Assessment, which is a tool for assessing the potential impacts on data privacy of an organisation's systems and processes. It's also used for identifying actions as necessary to treat privacy risk. The DPIA can be carried out by data processors or data controllers for purposes such as identifying risks, impacts and responsibilities for data privacy, providing input for privacy by design to the ongoing product development, and sharing and mitigating privacy risk with shareholders or providing evidence relating to compliance. Cubic has carried out a DPIA which has enabled us to identify the risks associated with software development and provision and those associated with being a data processor. We have produced a customer summary document which can be provided upon request.
Can I just say that the DPI produced was non-mandatory. It was great to see. It was a proactive move, and hopefully that's the output of that has instilled confidence in your clients.
Good. And actually, one other word on that, Matt, as well. Is this something that most companies have to do?
Not formally, no. So there's certain criteria that has to be met to perform a formal DPIA, and that's quite a sort of stringent process that has to be performed in conjunction with the ICO. So the DPIA we performed here, as previously stated, was non-mandatory. It was a proactive move to enable us to create that customer summary for your clients, and again to hopefully instill confidence in them and to show them that you know what it is, you've thought about it, you've identified your risks, and you have a plan in place to deal with them by May 2018.
Okay, well thank you, Matt. So one of the other questions we got here is what should you be doing about it?
Well, you should be reviewing your internal policies and processes that are already in place with the Data Protection Act and identifying what changes need to be made in accordance with the GDPR. In particular, the legal basis for processing personal data and understanding subject access requests, whether or not they apply.
Right, okay. So what does the GDPR legislation come into effect?
The new legislation officially comes enforceable from the 25th of May 2018. The GDPR is bringing data protection into the public spotlight, particularly since the ICO is about to run a public awareness campaign. Any companies who are misusing personal data are more likely to be reported after that date.
Okay, brilliant. So if we're leaving the EU, will it still apply?
Since the GDPR legislation will be written into UK law well before we leave the EU, or even start a transition period, the rules will be in effect for a long period of time and are unlikely to be changed even afterwards.
Yeah, I'll second that because sort of post-Brexit, well actually GDPR by and large has already been written into the UK Data Protection Bill, and that will become the UK Data Protection Act post-Brexit, and arguably data protection will become more important to the UK as we think that they'll be aiming for what's called an adequacy decision to continue with that free movement and business with the rest of the EU.
Okay, brilliant. So our last slide, Ian, is the preparing for the GDPR setup. So is it worth explaining a little bit about the diagram and what that means? Or
the best source of information that I've been using is the ICO website itself. There's an awful lot of articles out there on GDPR, and some of them are presenting scare stories and misinformation. But the ICO are the regulatory body who will be enforcing the legislation, and the ones that will be bringing out fines, and they're the best source of information to go to.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you for your time, and if anyone's got any questions or would like to speak to either Ian or Matt, then just use our support centre as usual, and they will go through to the right person. Thank you.